Good everyone. A couple of flashlights here to discuss with you. They're both 4Sevens Quark series lights, and at first glance you might think they're exactly the same. However, they're not. The one on the left is a Quark AA² and it's an R5 edition. The one on the right is a Quark X AA² and it's the Tactical version. Got all that word tactical. So what are the differences? Well, to look at, not all that much. But we'll come to that in a minute. What I really want to talk about in this video is the user interface or the operating system on these lights. Those who follow my channel would know I've previously done a fairly detailed review on the Quark, the S2 edition, which I also have. So I'm not going to make this a full-blown review of the lights. Suffice to say they're a very good light, which is why I've bought yet more of them. Before we get into the user interface, we'll have a quick look at the specs. Now, these are both AA powered lights, so I've already sort of mentioned my preferences for those because the batteries are easy to get. In each box you get the same thing. You get a flashlight, a couple of batteries, you get a little bag with 2 spare O-rings, a lanyard, one of these things which can go over the light so that you can use it to grip better in your hand, and of course a very, very good sheath with a D-ring and a little belt loop. Quite high quality item. So that's common to whichever Quark you might buy. When it comes to specifications, the one on the left, the R5 edition, it's got a maximum output of 205 lumens. The one on the right, the tactical version, puts out 280 lumens. Now to save me sort of having to read all this out, which is fairly boring, I'm just going to hold the spec sheets up. This one on the left, of course, is the R5, and the one on the right is the tactical, and you can see that the different outputs and significantly also the different run times for the various levels. So of course if you want sheer power you go for the tactical with the 280 lumens, but you will pay for that in reduced run time. And just before we move on to the operation of these lights, we'll just pick them up and have a bit of a look at them, and visually they're almost identical. We've got the 4Sevens logo on that side, which I notice has changed now, so the new ones will have a different logo on there. And on the back you can pick one model from the other easily enough because the tactical one of course has the word tactical on it. There's no other real difference. Overall size, weight, etc. is exactly the same. However, there's one significant difference. If we look at the two tail caps, and again I'll keep the tactical on the right, you'll notice there, I'll just move those boxes out of the way so we don't have it in the background, that the switch is different. On the normal Quark it's a recessed switch down in here, and on the tactical one it sits proud of that, which I assume is possibly to make it easier in perhaps a weapons light application or something like that. So one of the downsides of that particular system there is maybe for general purpose use, if you wanted to use this in what's sometimes called candle mode, standing it on its end cap like that, the standard Quark will do it, but of course this one tends to fall over. So it's only a small thing, but it is something to consider if you're going to use this maybe for camping or in your tent or something, or you want that function, you want to consider going for that model there. On to operating systems, and I'll try and keep these on the right side so we all know what's going on. As I mentioned, quite different, and actually they're both different from my previous one that I reviewed, the S2. First we'll talk about this one, the standard Quark AA, and I'll bring this up to show you because it's easier than talking about it. With the bezel loosened, in other words half a turn like so, when you turn the light on you're initially going to get moonlight. It'll then move on to low, medium, high, SOS and beacon. If you tighten the bezel you get two modes. When you first turn it on, straight on to max, and then you can go to strobe, and we'll demonstrate that now to show you. So with the bezel loosened initially, we'll turn the light on, we've got moonlight. If I soft click on the tail cap, it goes up to low, up to medium, up to high. It'll now give us our SOS, and that's our beacon. And if I soft click it again, you can see there it goes back to moonlight. If I tighten that bezel, it'll immediately go to maximum power. Soft click on the button and I go straight to strobe, and that's selectable back again. So all the modes are accessible. It's just a little bit different again from the S2 model. As I said, it runs, I think it's from moonlight right through to maximum, and then you've got to cycle through all of those twice to access the special modes such as SOS and beacon. But that's not a bad interface, I don't mind that at all. I find that's actually quite good. This one is very, very different indeed, and I will just put this up in front of you. It's got the details there of how you set this thing. Anyone who's considering buying these, have a pause of that and have a read of how it all operates. I'm not going to demonstrate changing the modes on this because, to be honest, I find it quite cumbersome. I've got it how I want it for the moment. So the way I've set this up, and again it's all down to if the bezel's tightened or loosened. On mine, when I turn it on with the bezel loosened, I go to medium, because that's what I've set it to memorise. If I tighten the bezel, I go straight to maximum power. So I switch between those two modes of the 8. The way that you go about changing that is you turn the light on and then you rotate backwards and forwards the bezel around about 4 times, the light will flash. You then set the bezel, if you want to change the tighten setting, you have it tightened or loosened, cycle through on your button till you find the setting you want, leave it sit for about 10 seconds, the light will then flash and tell you it's memorised that mode. It's probably a sort of a set and forget thing. I could see that it would have uses in some applications. For example, if you were a security guard, perhaps you wanted to have your light so that maybe you could read something in the car, so you might set it for low, but then you want to immediately be able to go to high power, obviously in a situation where you need to light up an area, or police officer, that type of thing. Again, possibly weapons light, whatever. It's probably not the ideal mode for general use. I tend to prefer, I think, the other mode because it's more selectable for the various levels of light. Having said that, both very good lights, and I'm not unhappy with either of them. I guess the point here to think about when you're looking at buying lights such as these is to look at not only the lumens output, which is what everyone tends to look for, but also think about the batteries you want. Can you buy those batteries easily, the size of the light, but also try and find some information on the user interface and the controls of the light, and is it going to do what you want. If you want a light that you can use all the various modes quite easily in different situations, then you're probably not going to want this tactical one. However, you might be the sort of person who only wants 2 modes and you really like the idea of being able to select which they are, the tacticals you like. So do a bit of research before you spend your money, and hopefully you get a light that suits you. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Bye for now.